So
Right.
if you go to the next slide, NASA Blue Marble 2.0 is what that one is. Many of you are probably familiar with this image and the creator of it and what he said about it, but this might be a review for some of you. Some of you might not know about this at all, but we're happy to share with you guys that this is not a photograph, and the person who created it has gone on record, and he's on NASA's website. We don't have to read all of this here, but they say, what do you do, right? Robert Simon, lead data visualizer and information designer, senior program analyst. So he works with computer programs, and the visualizer is just Photoshopper, basically, right? This is his job title. If you go to the next slide, you could read just that highlighted part maybe for me, Sean, or so the top question and the highlighted part.
Yeah. So Robert Simmons was asked, what do you do and what is most interesting about your role here at Goddard? How do you help support Goddard's mission? It's so funny to me. It's hard for me to keep a straight face. Whew. Because remember I was talking about the look of someone easily susceptible to influence.
Yeah.
So he says, my role is to make imagery from Earth Sciences data because we science here. He said, my role is to make imagery from Earth Sciences data. I turn data into pictures. Right. Michael, have you ever turned data into pictures as a professional image creator?
No.
You turned ideas
no.
turn into
sure.
pictures,
you take
right?
Concepts and you illustrate the concepts. You may take a several images and manipulate them to create another image, but raw data. I mean, is he talking streams of numbers? I mean,
yeah.
no.
So have you ever, when you watched The Matrix, Michael, could you see the numbers floating down and be like, "Oh, brunette, redhead"?
That's
were
not
you
how
like
it works.
Cypher sitting there? You could read it. You could see the people. No,
absolutely.
So how do these guys? What kind of training goes involved for someone to get back a bunch of data that's just fed to them? Think about the process, right? These guys are just sitting in their office and they're like, "Oh, hey, the new reports came in." It's a bunch of old like printed out ones and zeros, and they're like, "Here, look, this is of the Galaxy 539G." You know, and you're like, it's a multi-gaseous galaxy with some red hues, and they're like, "Oh, sweet, I'll get right on that." Yeah, so they take the zeros and ones and make all these fancy photoshopped images. It's not real.
Right. I mean, this guy actually described exactly how he put a globe Earth together, and the way he described it is exactly the way it's done. I just did an intro for a Facebook talk show, and they had the globe Earth in there. I tried to convince them not to, but they didn't listen to me. So the client. But really what he did was he said, first you take a globe and then you take the continents and you wrap them around the globe. And then you take a layer of clouds and you put the layer of clouds in there. And then you take a specular highlight. He actually made a big deal out of that.
Michael, if I could stop you, I hate to interrupt you, but this is all right here in the presentation that we can look at for it out of his mouth.
Okay,
right?
Okay,
We're even going to play the clip here momentarily. So yeah, you're right. Okay. You're absolutely right. There at the very bottom, it just says, our team is purely about communications. We translate data into a usable and understandable form. So they're just trying to communicate a message and an idea to you. The prophets of NASA are, right? Yep. They want to communicate a message. If you'll go to the next slide, I think
look at the data that they translate. 3,000 CDs worth of information per day.
That's silly.
How many people are translating? How many? What are we looking at here? Is this like an entire 20-story building full of guys like this that translate the data every day? And how do they know which parts of the data? Anyway, I'm going to stop.
Here's exactly what Michael was just saying out of his own mouth on this interview there that's posted on the NASA website, that the hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface with 4 months of satellite data. Was that hard to create a flat map of the Earth's surface? I doubt it. But Rito Stockley, now at the Swiss Federal Office of Meteorology and Climatology, did much of this work. I recognize that name from the GOES satellite image from 2000, 2 years prior to this. However, he said, then we wrapped the flat map around a ball. My part was in integrating the surface clouds and oceans to match people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. That ball became the famous blue marble.
Yep.
And if you go to the next one, that's the cue for his quote that we're going to hear in an interview that he's done on video. Right? It is Photoshop, but it has to be, he says. Yep. If you can pull that one up, brother, we'll play that clip and hear what he has to say out of his own mouth.
This world is not what you think it is. Last week, scientists at NASA released this. The shot is compiled from data from NASA's VEERS instrument, which orbits the Earth about every 100 minutes, taking measurements of light coming off the planet. That can be translated into ribbons of imagery like this, and then into one of these. And this is just the latest in NASA's Earth from Space album, which may be one of the most mind-expanding collections of images in human history.
I think the images are very powerful because they make people think about the Earth in a different way.
Then in 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Rob Simon made this. And it had wide appeal too. For example, it ended up as the default background on the iPhone.
I didn't even know until I bought an iPhone and turned it on and kind of did a little happy dance.
Simon's job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is, a composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
To us, the really cool thing was the data set. Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
So the land layer here comes from
the Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer aboard Terra.
And the tricky part here was the weather.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it's a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it.
Simon wants to make the world better too, starting with the atmosphere.
And I'm getting results that I like, but I think it's a little bit exaggerated. So I'm working on some techniques to try to tone it down a little bit.
To make it a little more homey.
And joining me is Ernie Wright, visualizer at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. You're a visualizer and storyteller behind hundreds of NASA illustrations and videos. So give us a brief summary of your multimedia background and your role today at Goddard.
So I work in the Scientific Visualization Studio, and we call that the SVS, so we don't have to say that over and over. The studio creates scientific animations and illustrations using data from NASA missions. And these are videos that are specifically data-driven. So everything you see is a piece of data from a NASA mission.
You start with, as you mentioned, a ton of data, and you figure out the best way to present it. So what is the process like?
Our job basically is to place that data in context. I mean, when it comes from the spacecraft, it's all just zeros and ones. And we like to make it look a little bit like whatever the data is. So if it's something hot, we'll make it red. And if it's water, we'll make it blue, just so it reads for people. And it's easy for them to interpret. And we also are storytellers. You'd think we could just paste this data onto a ball and say, here it is. But we really have to tell the story of the data, what it means, what its significance is, why people should care about it. And so we collaborate with producers and writers and scientists, and we all get together and decide how to present this data in a way that's engaging for the public, in a way that is comprehensible to a public that may not have all the science and technical background that the scientists do. So I have to translate the data into forms that my software can understand. We use basically movie special effects software. So there's no science sort of built into the software. I have to tell it what this data is. And so I make it into image maps and things that can be wrapped onto geometry. And then that software is like having a movie set. So there are cameras and lights And you decide where to point the camera and how the light should be pointed. Usually it's sunlight, but sometimes it's something else. And I make sure that it's in the right place on a sphere, and then I decide where the camera has to go in order to tell the story. Whatever tells the story. And we call this cinematic visualization. We kind of want to distinguish it from the kind of things that scientists might do at their desk, where they would plot graphs and make things that only scientists love. We're making things that try to communicate to a much wider audience.
You mentioned software a couple of times now. What software tools do you use to organize the data that you're referring to and build those images?
So a lot of us have a background in computer science, and the reason for that is that we have to write our own programs to translate that data. It always comes to us in some weird form that no software can read except the scientist's little desktop thing. So we're constantly having to write software that translates the data, interprets it. We use scripting languages and Python, and all of that's like the first step, just to get the data into a usable form. And then we use off-the-shelf animation and rendering software. So we happen to use Maya for animation. This is the program that sort of displays the set. It has the models in it and the positions of the camera and the lights. And the rendering software, the software that actually writes the pixels into the final image, is RenderMan, which is a piece of software that Pixar makes. It's the same software they use for their movies.
$50 million on the daily, that's the banknote. Just for some computer animation from a space probe. That's a cartoon, all I'm seeing is a fake globe. And NASA never landed on the moon, it was a fake, bro. So peep the show, ain't no sleeping, no, I'm on no dose. I preach the kingdom, I'm still tipping on fofos.
$50 million on the daily, that's the banknote. Just for some computer animation from a space probe, right?
He's right. The software Maya is a leading software used in Hollywood for visual effects, character design, environmental design, that sort of thing. RenderMan, yes, was indeed created by Pixar.
Is that software used in the Unreal Engine?
No.
Okay.
Unreal Engine is a whole different ballgame. Maya is more of a traditional subdivision pixel-based. Well, they're all pixel-based, but Unreal is a real-time renderer, meaning you don't really need to render. What you see is what you get immediately. Whereas with Maya, you may create a scene. Once you hit render, it could take hours or days to visualize that image. So yeah, he's speaking the truth. Now, here's an interesting thing. Nowadays, you don't need that. You could spend $100, if that, on a piece of software that can do exactly what Maya does, with no problem. I don't use Maya because it's too expensive, and it's too much of a headache to use. So yeah. But if you notice, he says we're storytellers, and he's right. They're telling a narrative, and they use cinematic software to do it.
Right. They get together with writers and scientists, and they come up with the pictures that they want to communicate to the people with their message, right? So, yep, there it is from the horse's mouth themselves, right? We had Robert Simmons. We had the other guy that's another NASA data visualizer, just telling you straight up, they wrap images around balls in computer software and show them.
And it's 3D software. Nowadays, they do it in 3D. 3D is far easier to work with than 2D. You have far more advantages. Because you can get 2D renders from 3D, but when you're dealing with the Z-axis, because the 2D software dealing with XY, but then when you add that Z-axis, when you add dimension into it, your advantages just go sky high.
Look at this photograph.